This is the Ryan Luelf Show.
So there's all these things programmed in my mind.
Sounds like roles.
Sounds like roles.
Sounds like I have to be a little bit less version of myself. The real me's a little too much. The real me's a little too loud. The real me's a little too out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody will accept me. I don't know if anybody will like me. I don't know if the current people in my life will want to keep doing business with me. I'm not sure there'll be enough abundance if the real me shows up.
Keep going. I'm listening.
Who knows what I might cut off, even though I've just been cutting off myself for fucking 4 or 5 decades, and I wonder why there's a pit in my stomach, or a heaviness in my chest, or a knot in the back of my right neck and shoulder that I can't seem to ever massage out. Maybe I've been cutting off the wrong fucking thing for way too long.
Myself.
Yeah, but they told me that, it's selfish to be focused on yourself. Well, where did they get that idea? Who made that up? So is it selfish for me to take care of my own needs? Who's going to go to the bathroom for me if I don't go to the bathroom for me? Where does it switch from it makes total sense that I'm totally responsible for myself to where now I'm supposed to be focused and responsible on everyone other than myself? That doesn't even make any sense. And so, yeah, we've got at some point to be courageous and brave enough. Well, we don't have to, but if we want to truly experience the thing that we keep thinking is hidden in money, is hidden in prestige, is hidden in material things, is hidden in sex, is hidden in some spiritual encounter, is hidden in some vacation, trip, house, multiple houses, whatever it is, if we really want to experience the thing, we've got to unleash the complete, authentic, not watered down version of us and see what happens. And the only way, from my point of view, that we'll ever be brave enough to do that is to already know you're the fucking universe, period. What else would there be? Why else would there be? What else is there to be afraid of? If I am the universe, I am included. I'm not separate. I am the whole. I am love. I am acceptance. I am peace. I am fulfillment. I am satisfaction.
Yep.
I'm all those things.
Yep.
And I just chose to come down here and play this game and be in this movie and be in this meat suit, this thing called a body, and play the role of this avatar because I wanted the contrast. I wanted to have all of the limitations so I could be reminded of the limitlessness that I actually am.
So are you saying I should do that podcast?
Yeah. I'll be your first guest, or we'll just do it fucking together and I'll have 2. I don't know.
I want to welcome everybody from the inside out. Welcome to the Ryan Luelf Show. He's already on a tangent. I just simply said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a podcast, but I'm a little worried because of the part of the country that I'm in. I'm a little worried because I can be out there in the way that I think, which I know you appreciate. But, I have all these programmed nuances in my mind. I was just trying to convince the guy that I should do a podcast, but I'm afraid, and he went off on a tangent. This is the Ryan Luelf Show. This is what he does. He goes off on tangents. And today, I have a feeling he's going to continue to go off on me because I do want to do this podcast. And and the way that I want to do it, it is risky and it is out there, but it is something that people think about, talk about privately. And so, yes, it does scare me. But I think if I did it the way that I wanted to do it, it would be because I was my truest, most authentic self. And I think that's what scares me the most. And damn it, Damn it. Why? Talk me off the ledge. Like, why? Like, why can I not pull the trigger on that?
Well, most likely, Brian, like when you were a little boy, there was a situation, there was an environment, there was something in the way of being that your parents, uh, were at in their stage of their human journey, and I'm finding that it's somewhere around that age 4 or 5, typically. Like, I think most people, I understand there are extreme situations and extreme cases, and I'm not here to ever downplay the horrific things that people go to that are born into really, really hard situations, okay? But I think on the spectrum, like a large percentage of people, somewhere around 4 or 5 is when they become conscious as a little boy or a little girl that it's not safe to just wake up and exist. They need to perform. They need to do something or they're going to get yelled at. They need to do something or they're going to get in trouble. They need to do something or they're going to feel disappointment, anger, frustration, irritation from a parent, from a sibling, from a school teacher. And so they begin to slowly become conscious of who they think they need to be. Whereas I would argue, like in those first 2 or 3 or 4 years of your life, you didn't wake up and think, who do I need to be today to be safe? You just woke up and existed.
Yeah.
And you were safe being your authentic version of yourself. You were free.
When does that go away?
That's what I'm saying. I think somewhere for most of us, when I've went back into my childhood, when I've done different therapies, experiences, when I've worked with coaches, when I've had plant medicine experiences, when I've studied the different spiritual practices, all of that, I'm finding that a lot of shit happened around 4 or 5 for me that began to condition me, program me, form me, and develop me into thinking I needed to show up as a certain version of myself. And the reason I believed I needed to do that is because the signals that I was getting as a little boy was that if you don't do this, you won't be safe. If you don't do this, you won't be loved and accepted.
You're going to get in trouble.
If you don't do this, it's going to be your fault. If you don't show up and be this certain way, all hell's going to break loose.
And we don't want to disappoint as a kid.
Absolutely not, because I'm thinking I'm a human being. I'm thinking I'm separate from the whole, from God, from the divine. In fact, I happen to be born into a narrative where I was being taught that exact thing. You are separate from God. And you have to do certain things, believe certain ways, and make sure you don't perform or make sure you don't act out in other ways so that you can close that gap and no longer be separate. That's exactly what I was being told. So it formed every single part of me. There was nothing that set me up and allowed me to just be all of myself in complete messiness and human form, because I was taught very early on that that wasn't going to be acceptable. That wasn't going to work. And I didn't have any way, and none of us do. We don't have any way to combat that. We don't have any way
Especially at that age.
No. We don't have words. We don't have
So
articulation.
we're already starting off under the water.
Yeah,
You're already drowning.
But we didn't start off when we first arrived here.
But
I'm saying 3 or 4 years
Yes.
in, then
we're
we
starting
are.
to tread water.
And since we don't have the ability to combat it, and we definitely don't have a brain developed at a point that
Correct.
we can give language to it, speak it, right? I would argue then that's why it's embedded in our nervous system. It's embedded at a cellular level. It becomes like maybe we decide it's not safe to show our emotions. Like, think about how many men are afraid to cry or afraid to show emotion. Well, what if that was when they were a little boy? What if something happened, they cried, and what if their dad yelled at them?
I'm going to give you something to cry about.
And what if their dad is that way because of what happened to them when they were a little boy? And how far do you want to go back?
Yeah.
And someone might say, well, why is planet Earth like this? And I would say, well, if we don't let planet Earth be planet Earth, then planet Earth can't be planet Earth. So if at the essence of who we are, at the soul level, at the non-physical being that we are outside of being in this impermanent thing we call a body, if that is timeless, limitless, boundless, ineffable, then in order for us to even be able to give language to the soul that we are, wouldn't we need the contrast of a limited, messy, flawed, kind of screwed up experience? Because if I've never been sick, I have no relativity to understand my own health. If I've never been without, I have no relativity to understand what it means to have plenty. If I've never experienced pain and suffering, then I have no way of calling something joy and love, right? So what if this whole deal is about experiencing the contrast in order to even allow us to bask in the glory of our true essence? What if nothing's out of order? What if it's supposed to be chaotic and crazy? Because isn't that then, like, if I've never had a really tough moment, wouldn't I just take all the beautiful moments for granted?
Yeah, of course.
Like, going back to our first episode, you expressed that at 52 years of age, based on the way the circumstances unfolded, you experienced the best Thanksgiving you described you had ever had.
Correct.
And you described it as different than all 51 of the ones you had experienced before.
Right.
So how would you even know to call this one the best if you hadn't already had the opposite or the other end of the spectrum type
Other
experiences?
versions. Yeah.
So wouldn't it be silly for you to get pissed off, angry, mad, and upset about the fact that what you discovered now, you think, well, why haven't they always been like this? You wouldn't even know what this one was if you hadn't had the 51 the way they were prior. You can't ever discover the essence of who we truly are if you don't have the messy, flawed, wild, crazy, sporadic, screwed up version of being human to give it contrast.
So we need to package that up and be accepting of that being good. Like, we need to be okay that it wasn't the way that we wanted it to be, or we didn't end up the way we wanted it to be, or our life took a different turn, or we married someone we shouldn't have married. You're saying we need to wrap all that up, be okay with it, position it as that's okay, that's all good, because it got you to where you are now, and let's go. Is that what you're saying? Is it as simple as that?
How else would you be at peace?
What if I'm not?
You're not at peace?
I'm not saying I'm not, but what if I wasn't?
Well,
Where do we go then?
Well, then the question would be is what are you believing has to be in place in order for you to be at peace?
All right, finding your truest version. So you're saying we're never going to get anywhere we want to go in life unless we find that peace of being our truest, most authentic self. And that's the beginning stages of this curriculum, this philosophy, this methodology that you're teaching. It starts at the core of getting someone to be their truest, most authentic self, knowing they were built being something completely different.
Absolutely. Yeah, because nobody's ever at peace if they're constantly doing a bunch of stuff they don't actually really want to do. No one's ever really at peace if they're constantly having to perform and show up in ways that they don't really actually want to. So what are they really afraid of? Because if I say to all of my family, I don't want to do Thanksgiving that way anymore, what is the response, the backlash that we're also afraid of?
Right.
Versus, I'm not saying to be hateful or to be ugly or to completely bash anyone. I think there's a very conscious way for me to be authentic to me and at the same time just say, hey, this isn't going to work for me to continue to show up and play this role, or I don't really align with that. I understand if that's how you still want to go about doing it, but we're going to need to handle that a little bit different going forward because I realized I'm compromising a version of myself that I'm no longer willing to compromise.
But Ryan, how are you convincing men who by the way are hard to convince, particularly successful men? How are you convincing? We're all miserable in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
And if we're not, we have been.
Yeah.
Most of us. I don't want to say everybody. I'm saying 98% of men. Would that be?
Well, I don't want to have to put a percentage on it because I don't know where every man's at, but you're probably right. I mean, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say. So I would just say, you know what? What if there is no convincing to do? What if in my true, authentic self-expression at this time in my human journey, I decided I wanted to put out content. I wanted to have a podcast. I wanted to coach. I wanted to run ads. I wanted to expose everything that has unfolded in my 45 years as a human being on the planet. And I'm not saying I'm always brilliant or great at practicing this, but I'm very aware of it. I'm just going to trust that the men who are absolutely at the same point that I've found myself so many times, which is they're fucking done. They're exhausted. They're exasperated. They've tried everything. I mean, the men that I attract probably actually have a lot of money because I think if you haven't made a lot of money, you're still thinking that a lot of money is going to bring you peace.
Right.
So,
and you're focused on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
God, you're so right. And I've experienced this. Lots of money. Many of my friends, lots of money, empty.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think sometimes actually what money does is it actually helps us hide even more.
Absolutely.
So maybe what you're really sick and tired of is the role that you play in your family dynamic. Like you're tired of showing up in the relationship with your mother in a certain way. Well, when you have a lot of money, for an example, you can just kind of mask the real thing and never address it and never deal with it because you just throw money to kind of keep her at a distance.
Yeah.
But you're really still irritated deep down.
Yeah.
Because when we don't speak our truth, when we don't really say how we really feel, the same reason we're even choosing to play the role is still not being fulfilled. So watch this. So I'm playing a certain role because I'm afraid if I don't play the role, I won't be loved and accepted. But then simultaneously, the same reason that I'm afraid to speak my truth is because I won't be loved and accepted.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
So
full circle.
It's a full circle. It's a real conundrum, if
quagmire.
You will. Quagmire, if you will. And so what if we realized that when we're truly ourself, it's the only shot we ever have at experiencing the thing we ultimately desire?
My question, though, Ryan, how do you convince successful men that they're missing their life, that they're missing the best version of what could be their life? Like, how do you... Because men are already hard-headed.
Yeah.
Successful men are hard-headed and hard to get to.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, like, how do you reach that person? Because I buy what you're saying, but how do you convince somebody that knows deep down they're in despair, that knows they're in a quiet crisis, that knows that money isn't solving their problem, that knows that life could and should be a lot better? And listen, many of us men have blown up our lives searching for it. How do you reach that guy?
I think I just let life do it for me.
The vibration, the law of attraction.
Well, what I'm saying, but what I'm also saying is like life got me ready, you know?
But Ryan, let's be honest. You had a near-death experience. And by all practical matters, you shouldn't even be here.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that. You had a life-changing formality in your life that forced you to think different. Most of us will never come close to having the experience that you had.
Well, I think it depends on how you look at it. What if you're the man that's in a sexless marriage? Why isn't that just as catastrophic to that man as my stage 4 cancer diagnosis? What if you have an estranged child that because you weren't able to be the present father maybe that you would have loved to have been, now you have a child that doesn't want anything to do with you? Isn't that pretty catastrophic? Like, what if you have a situation where you've been playing a role where you've been the one that's tried to carry the emotional weight for your mother for a really long time, and she's toxic, just as an example? Like, doesn't that feel pretty catastrophic? Like, I think what we do is we're not naming all the things that ought to be on the list as, aren't you tired of that? Aren't you sick of the sleepless nights? Aren't you so irritated with how much anxiety and stress you're constantly carrying because you just never know when the next text message or the next phone call or the next
kick in the nuts,
right, is going to come,
right,
emotionally, right? Or maybe you're the one that you feel like your spouse is always blaming you, that it's always your fault. And so you've worked overtime trying to appease your spouse in every human possible way. More money, bigger house, fancier cars, going to certain things that you don't want to, giving them space, showing up better in the parenting category, like whatever it may be. Like, I think we keep thinking that it has to be cancer or divorce or financial loss or, and all of those are big. And I've had all of those, but I think it's just as big a deal that you don't have intimacy with the person that you're in a relationship with and you haven't had it for a really long time. And yet you either, one, don't know how to get out of it. Number two, you feel like your whole world's going to cave in if you actually speak your truth. You don't know how to have any type of boundaries, right? You haven't figured out a way that can be win-win for everyone.
Well, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head too. Men can't speak their truth. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm asking the question. Most men cannot speak their truth.
Yeah.
You've got to get them to the altar.
Yeah.
And so hopefully seeing, the Ryan Luelf show, seeing pieces as a content of how you coach, how you convey, how you transform lives, hopefully that connects with, we're all going through something.
Everyone is.
And you have such a diverse, complicated, and I say complicated, such a dynamic way of looking how life can be better. I'm just anxious on how we're going to connect to the guy who is going through the quiet crisis, who might be in a sexless marriage, who might have a strained mother-son relationship even at 50, 60 years of age. Like, how do we get them to the altar, and how can we anoint them with the Ryan Luelf theory and methodology that can literally transform lives?
Well, I think first and foremost, there's nothing new under the sun, and I'm not teaching anything new. It just may be new to people who are now ready for it. There's an old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And I've seen that play out over and over and over in my life. And there are so many times where I got exposed to a human being expressing something, and I just didn't have the ears to hear it. I wasn't at a place that it would land. I didn't have enough openness for it to penetrate.
So good.
And so I can't.
So you're saying there are millions of men out there who this will land.
I'm trusting that. I have a real sense that there are other men that feel the way I've felt for a very long time. There are other men who have felt not good enough. There are other men who have realized maybe recently that they live in chronic anxiety and stress. There are other men who feel like They are always screwing things up when it comes to money and business. And they can't seem to figure out why they just keep self-sabotaging. There's other men out there that are crushing it in business. They have more money than they could probably do in multiple lifetimes, and yet they feel alone. They feel empty. They don't feel respected by their spouse. They don't have intimacy with their kids. They're not even sure they even like themselves.
In most cases, probably don't.
I've experienced every single version I just described at some point or another in the last 25 years as an adult.
What's the name of this podcast?
The Ryan Luelf Show.
What is this episode? We should be playing the Jeopardy music right here.
Yeah.
The
The moment you don't recognize yourself anymore.
The moment you don't reconcile.
The moment you don't
recognize
recognize yourself anymore.
Perhaps, for anyone listening right now, perhaps that's the call to action right now.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's the moment if you don't recognize yourself. And maybe it's as simple as that, Ryan. If you don't recognize yourself, maybe that's why you're watching this content. Maybe that's why you're enthralled with what Ryan Luelf on the Ryan Luelf Show is saying right now. You do not recognize yourself. And I got to tell you, there have been times as recent as, if I'm being completely transparent, as recent as probably 7 or 8 months ago, where I just was like, who am I?
Yeah.
No parameters, no borders, accepting things I would never accept in my normal life.
Yeah.
And so where are you? Are you unrecognizable? And if you are, I have good news. Now, listen, Ryan and I started this show in my advanced stage, in my advanced stage of figuring some shit out.
Mm.
But I think it takes a strong man to say, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I think it takes a strong man to say, I need some help.
Yeah.
I think it takes a strong man to say, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. It stops today.
Yeah.
I think it takes a strong man to work independently through strength. And I also think it takes a strong man to work to get better through assistance and help, which is what you're offering.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, as people get to know me more, as I share more of my story, as I unpack, 25 years now as an adult, 27 years, I'm 45 years old. I've had the moments where I didn't recognize myself. I started out as an entrepreneur, and I remember the moment that I wrote a suicide note in 2009, and I was $100,000 in credit card debt. I was making $20,000 a month, and I couldn't figure out why I was in such distraught, and then at age 35, I get stage 4 cancer diagnosis, and there was another moment where I'm staring my whole existence in the face, and it led me to go down a huge path of asking questions. Why do I feel the way I feel? Why was I under the belief system that I've been under? What happened during my childhood? I started reverse engineering it, and then at 2 other times, including, in the last couple of years, I've lost 7-figure net worths, and I'm thinking to myself, how could I be so dumb? What's wrong with you? I had the shame, the
Screwed
guilt.
it up again.
Yeah. And yet somehow, some way, I have always found my way back to curiosity. Somehow, some way, I have found myself back in a place of, let me be the scientist of my humanity. Let me go on a journey of discovery. Maybe there's some things I just don't quite understand. And the amount of teachers, coaches, podcasts, books, the one investment that has paid off more than anything else is an investment in myself.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can think of a couple of people that I used to devour every piece of content that they put out. And maybe today, I don't even listen to them anymore. But if you could understand the gratitude that I have for the fact that that person didn't say no to their own self-expression and what they meant to me at that season of my life, I don't know who's going to resonate with my message. I don't know who's going to resonate with my stories. I don't know who's going to be at that exact point that it's time to invest in a new perspective, a new operating system, a new way of functioning, a new way of being human. What I do know is I believe through the method that I offer, the private coaching that I do, real transformation is on the other side. And all I'm going to do is really just lead men back to the version of themselves that was free, probably when they were 3,
4 or 5 years old,
that got buried,
groomed,
time and time again,
molded into whatever they were supposed to be.
Absolutely. And it makes so much sense, and we have so
Absolutely.
much compassion. And even though we're going to identify people that played roles, maybe your mother, maybe your father, maybe your school teachers, maybe your religion, at the end of the day, though, ultimate freedom understands there's no one and nothing to blame, not even ourselves. We have compassion, but we still need to extract it so that we can understand the impact that it's had on us. There's a difference
before we can move forward.
Because
we have to understand the dynamics in which we were
correct
to get to where we want to be.
Correct. So we reveal first and foremost how it came about so we can start to make sense of our humanity.
You're going to reveal it.
I'm going to help reveal it in them. Then I'm going to walk them through how to release it. And then I'm going to show them what it looks like to rebuild from a completely new you. The real you that was there all along, but it's buried. It's
deep.
It's deep at a unconscious cellular level that most of us are completely oblivious to. Like, you keep thinking, not you, but people keep thinking, like, I thought it's my fault. I keep making all these dumb financial mistakes.
Deeper.
It's deeper. I was oblivious to the patterns. I was oblivious to the belief systems. I was oblivious to what was the way in which I related to money. And once I understood that, it made so much sense at why I continued to have the same pattern that ultimately self-sabotaged.
And it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And you're burying yourself while you're alive.
Absolutely.
Journey to discovery.
For sure.
Journey to discovery. And I think before we end today's show, I think you have to give people who might not be ready to be coached yet
100%.
Give them something. For me, from my perspective, I think if you want to take a step, if you don't recognize yourself right now, and you want to take a step, but you're not ready to go to the Coach Ryan, you're not ready for Coach Ryan yet. He might be a little too hard just yet. For me, gratitude. You got to have gratitude, but I'm not the coach. What's something that you can give somebody who's not recognizing themselves, but might not be quite ready to take on what you're going to give them? Give them that first step into that journey of discovery.
So all 4 of my kids' names start with an A. Addison, Atlanta, Arthur, and Arrow. And I want to give 2 words to our listeners today, and they both start with A. Awareness and acceptance. Where can you bring awareness to your life that maybe you currently haven't had very much awareness around? And second of all, what could you accept about yourself, about your human experience, about your current situation that you're currently in resistance to?
What can you accept that you're not accepting right now?
Yeah, because we are all, from my point of view, we are all doing the absolute best that we can based on the level of awareness that we're currently operating in. So a way of thinking about that is just imagine that your mind is what is like the energetic field that's right around your body or right around your head. Our brain is inside of us. I think our mind is actually kind of like this energetic field right around us. And let's imagine it as like a space, okay? And that space is where our awareness lives. So when you think of like different spaces, this can help all of us understand that when we think in terms of like free will or choices or decisions, I think it boils down to the space that we're currently living from in our minds. So if I've been put in prison, like an actual jail, and then I'm in solitary confinement, and this little solitary confinement is a 6x6 cell, there's no light, and I don't even have enough space to lay down. If that, in a physical sense, that space represents my current level of awareness, how much free will, how many choices do I actually have in that awareness space?
Very limited.
Very limited. Not very many, right? Now, let's say I then move out of solitary confinement for this example, and I move into a 12x12 regular prison cell.
We're moving now.
Now there's light. I could read.
Yeah.
I can do pull-ups, push-ups.
Mm-hmm.
I might be able to, look out the bars and talk to my neighbor next to me, right? So what increased? Did my actual free will increase, or did the space in which free will is accessed increase? Which is awareness. I had more awareness, therefore I have the ability to make more choices, more decisions. You following me?
I'm following.
Now, let's say you get completely out of prison and you're just a normal human being living out here in the free world. How much bigger is that space? How many more options do you have? So I like to think of awareness based on the capacity or the space that I'm living from in my mind. And as my awareness grows, or my container, my space, so do the possibilities, so do my choices, and so do the decisions that I have the ability to make.
And we're all living in this small, confined space based on how
it says, my religion is the one and only way to see God.
Yep.
My way of parenting and doing family and traditions at Thanksgiving is the one and only right way to do it. My way of going about my career and my job and how I work in the world is the one and right and only way. The way we do relationships and marriage and sex and this and that, right? We all live on some level in solitary confinement, which cuts us off from the unlimited possibilities and choices that exist in the universe, because our awareness tells us that this is the only choices that we have, because this is the solitary confinement space that we live in. And it feels unsafe. Have you ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption?
Yes.
Do you remember the old man? I wish I could think of his exact name.
I know where you're going.
You know where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
He got so comfortable in prison that when he finally got let out, he got so uncomfortable that he decided to take his own life.
Yep.
We get so comfortable in our limited version of ourselves that even though we don't like it, even though we're miserable, even though it's unsatisfactory, even though we don't feel fulfilled, we don't feel fully alive, it's not what we want, we sometimes have such a difficult time embracing something that's outside of our current level of awareness, because our current level of awareness says, as long as I'm in here, I'm safe. As long as I'm in here, I go to heaven. As long as I'm in here, I don't disappoint anybody. As long as I'm in here, I'm included. As long as I'm in here, nothing bad can happen to me. That's what we tell ourselves. Those are all the lies and the illusions that we live in.
Wow.
And what happens for so many people is life happens. I've met so many people along the way that thought they were doing all the right things and they still got cancer. I've met so many people that thought they were still doing all the right things and they still had financial catastrophe. A lot of people doing all the right things and their spouse still left them. All the right things and their kids still don't want to talk to them. All the right things and still got passed up for the promotion, or the business failed. Like, until our world blows up and we keep believing the lie that as long as we do all the right things, then nothing we consider bad will ever happen to us, most of us stay in solitary confinement and call it life.
That is the solitary confinement. That's the small space.
And that's the illusion. That's the
and going back to podcast number 1, where that's such a small space when you're the ocean,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, if I'm really God incarnated as man to experience the contrast so I can remember how cool it is to be God, seems kind of silly that I would just come down here to earth and then just occupy a little cell
To be safe.
when I'm the one that is the whole damn thing.
The whole damn thing.
And why is it so scary? Why does that trigger so many people? And we're not going to go off on it in this episode.
But let's end the episode with how we started. We started, well, I just wanted some advice on this fucking podcast that I want to do that I feel like is way too out there. And I think why I'm scared of it is because it takes me to what I feel like will be the last hurrah of my professional life.
yeah.
I want to branch it off into I want to end as a comedian.
Hmm.
And I want the podcast and the comedy to be about something I realized when I got to start being my true authentic self,
Yeah.
which is being a bisexual.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm scared about.
Hmm. Wow. I had no idea that you were about to say that.
I didn't either.
And I could not be more honored that I'm putting out, like, oh man, that just touches me so deeply, because the container and the space that I have created and am creating for men is that they would feel so safe,
right,
that they could literally tell me anything
without judgment.
Not only without judgment, but with acceptance, and that I will take it to my grave. No one. I mean, I've had so many neat conversations, even with my wife, and I'm just so grateful, that Caroline is, who I'm with. And she says, Ryan, I get it. I know what you're doing. I understand. Like, I'll probably never be able to tell her 99.9% of what goes on in our sessions and the things that I'm going to unpack with these men and the kind of breakthroughs that we're going to have. I may never be able to share with anyone, but it's so sacred to me, because I just know the immense pain that I have lived in trying to be everything other than me.
Than you.
One of the greatest books that I got introduced to during my cancer journey was a book called Dying to Be Me.
Mm.
And, I'm one of those people that I'm just not afraid of anything. I mean, I still feel fear, but I refuse to be afraid of anything.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, like, it's just so silly. Like, we all want the same things, and yet we all put up the same barriers to block the same thing that we both actually want.
Right.
And all we have to do is just put down the barrier.
The labels.
Yeah. The labels, the judgment, the programming, the conditioning. But again, I just keep saying this. It comes back to, if I think I'm separate from God, if I think I'm separate from the divine, if I think I'm separate from the whole, think about it. If you didn't get selected in school when they were playing dodgeball,
oh yeah,
that feels terrible.
Horrific.
Right?
Right.
If you didn't get chosen at tryouts for the basketball team,
embarrassed.
Right? If you're the only kid you feel like that doesn't have a girlfriend, or maybe you were the kid that wanted a boyfriend, but you, God forbid, saw how they could never say
Oppress that.
Well, I mean, there are also real consequences.
Sure there are.
There are real bullies. There's real pain. There's people that do really mean stuff simply because they think whatever you're doing is immoral or whatever. So many people misunderstand what I'm saying when I say we are God. Most people, They want to be the God that gets to judge everybody. They
Yeah.
want to be the God that's in control. They want to be the God that arranges everything exactly the way they want. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being the essence of life itself. Like you can't take like if a wave splashes up onto the bank and embeds into the sand, and then you take a bucket of that sand, there is salt water from the ocean in that bucket. And if I drive from California or Florida or whatever coast I'm on, and I bring that bucket back to Oklahoma, does the salt water stop being salt water? Is it now separate from the ocean that it is? So just because we came down here in human form, we're acting like we're no longer the thing in which we were before we incarnated as a human. It's not about achieving more. It's not about striving more. It's not about a new routine. It's not because you don't get up early enough. It's not because you're not disciplined. It's not of any of those things, but that's what we keep telling ourselves because we keep thinking we're going to earn our way back and close the gap and stop feeling separated. And I'm inviting us to just wake up and remember that we were never separated in the first place.
Well, this show went about 10, 15 minutes longer than it was supposed to, but yeah, man, good stuff. Crazy, huh?
I love it.
And just to think we started the show by, I just wanted some help on a podcast, podcast idea, and I want to be a comedian before I die, I should say.
Yeah, I love it.
The Ryan Luelf Show. That's this episode. Good stuff today. Man, that was heavy, wasn't it?
Oh, hey, it's me again, Barlow. So I want to let you know that what Ryan Luelf is coaching, it's super real. Not programmed, not premeditated, and not inspired by anything other than raw truth and an unconditional love formatted by Source. You. Ryan's testimony is real. His life experience is indicative of a program he designed to not only transform one's self-identity and purpose, but to give a new outlook of what real, unprogrammed life could be, and at its highest, most enjoyable frequency once the preconditioned societal norms have been dismantled, erased. His work is raw, real, and life-altering. If you want more of this content, we have two places that you can go. You can join Ryan Luelf's School, SKOOL, for raw, unedited versions of his podcast and him personally, or you can book a free, simple clarity call for men needing to be heard, needing to be understood, or just given hope, someone to listen, to say that life is as real as your conscience allows. Those calls are designed to help you gain clarity. They're called clarity calls, and they're free. We hope that you allow us to help you, and then if we can help you, then you can let you. Pretty simple.